What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday Night Football Pre-Lock Show here on RotoGrinders. Happy to be with you, breaking down the last game of the divisional round of the playoffs. We've got the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers closing things out in California. Shouldn't be as much snow, I wouldn't think, out there as there was in Buffalo this afternoon, but the Bengals finishing off a pretty convincing victory over the Bills in the first game of the day, so they will be advancing to play Kansas City in the AFC Championship game next week. So that'll be played in Kansas City, and the winner of tonight's game will advance to play at the Eagles for the NFC Championship next week. So we've got Dallas, we've got San Francisco, we've got a pretty close spread in this game, about 3 or 4 points, and a total of about 46 in this game. So we'll break it down from a DFS perspective here over the next half an hour or so leading up until kickoff of the game. And to help do that, I am Justin Van Zuiden. I've got Tim Buell alongside. Tim, how you doing today?
Well, Justin, yesterday was the very first time all season long that I rostered Jerick McKinnon.
See, you should have been stubborn like me.
Right. Yep. That was the first time all season in any lineup that I rostered him. And he put up what was it, 2.5 fantasy points. So yeah, that's how my day went yesterday. I'm hoping for a little bit of a bounce back on the 2-game Sunday slate, and I'm hoping to win a little cash in Showdown tonight.
Yeah, so if you lost because of Jerick McKinnon yesterday, you can send those nasty grams to Tim, and he will take the blame for McKinnon struggling finally after an extended stretch of success. But we'll see what tonight brings. We'll see what we can jinx in this game tonight, though. I don't think I've got any long-standing stands against any of the players in this game, but you never know what might crop up. But we can talk about it here and get things rolling. I'll share my screen so that we've got the DFS lineup builder up on the screen for everybody. And again, I mentioned San Francisco favored by about 4 points, of course. Dallas coming off a convincing win over the Buccaneers on Monday night in the wild card round. San Francisco, a pretty routine victory over Seattle. How do we see this game playing out here tonight? You know, Dallas is a pretty public team. Seems like the public always likes to back the Cowboys, particularly after that game last week. But it's not like Tampa Bay was this juggernaut this year by any means. So I think maybe a little too much steam behind Dallas outside of obviously having the more proven quarterback. I think San Francisco pretty much takes the cake. Better running back, better defense, obviously. I think maybe Dallas is getting a little bit too much steam heading into this game. But how do you think this game is going to play out tonight?
Yeah, I'm not totally convinced that they're getting too much steam, maybe not as strongly as you. I think that this line is fair. I think that in terms of a betting perspective, this is a stay away. I think this line is quite fair. I think this game is going to be very close. I not convinced. Brock Purdy has been fantastic. This will be by far his biggest test, toughest test. Luckily, he's at home. Luckily, they have the rest advantage also. But I think this is going to be a close fought game. So it's definitely going to be. This is going to be a tough game. I think it's a tough game to handicap, and I think it's a tough showdown slate, which is good. I like it when things aren't easy builds.
Yeah, there are a number of different ways you can go. Nothing that's the extreme obvious. Hey, this is how everyone's going to be building their lineups. You'll see that in the ownership as we go through. Things are a little bit more spread out than what you often see on a single game slate. I do have a little bit more interest in San Francisco on the whole. But it's not like, there's a guarantee that Dallas is going to get waxed in this game. So we'll see where it leads in terms of a lineup build. And you can see if I sort DraftKings by projected owned captains, I can't remember the last time we've had a showdown slate with 9 players projected for at least 5% ownership in the captain. Usually you get 4, maybe 5 with 5% plus ownership, but we've got McCaffrey at 16.5, Dak at 13, Purdy at 12, CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, Dalton Schultz all around 10, Ayuk, Tony Pollard, Michael Gallup in about that 5 to 6% range in terms of captain ownership. So a lot more spread out than what we often see because of the nature of these teams. They'll spread the ball around. Dallas uses 2 running backs, obviously. The 49ers will use McCaffrey a lot, but then they'll spread the ball around and get Deebo Samuel and Ayuk and Kittle involved too. So I think it's really interesting as far as where we want to look for our captains, particularly for those that only build single lineups or might be playing cash games in Showdown. Who are a couple of your favorite players to look at for captains tonight?
Yeah, if you're just playing single entry or if you're playing cash games, I think that Christian McCaffrey should be your go-to captain. If you wanted to get a little bit different, saying you didn't want to eat that kind of the chalkiest captain, I would say maybe CD. I think CD would be a really strong play, or even a guy like Deebo, I think would be a strong play. But I think Christian McCaffrey is by far the safest captain. And you can see that if you look at for premium members, you can look at our simulation tool. Christian McCaffrey comes in with 27.63% chance of being the optimal captain, which is, over double what any other player has on the Showdown slate. So he was by far the optimal captain choice.
Yeah, he's definitely the safest play on the board. He's going to get his touches, particularly if the game is competitive. 15 for 119 in that first playoff game. Just 2 catches for 17 yards, did score a receiving touchdown. They didn't necessarily have to chuck the ball a lot in the second half of that game, given that they fairly well controlled it against Seattle. And he's still, 24.6 DK points with only catching 2 passes. You would expect him to maybe get a little bit more than that tonight, assuming this game is somewhat close. But I don't mind mixing and matching some of these lower owned guys. Lamb would be my favorite on the Dallas side. If you think they're going to get, fall behind like I do, I think Pollard maybe has a little bit more intrigue as well. I think that, obviously that type of build would script Zeke out of it a little bit more. And I think there's plenty of different, if you're building multiple lineups today, I don't think this is necessarily a slate where you just want to go plug in setting, optimizer settings and cranking out 100 lineups. I think you got to tell yourself a few different stories of how you think the game's going to go. Hey, here's what I'm going to build if I think it's going to be competitive throughout. Here's what I think I'm going to build if the 49ers get out to a lead. Here's what I think I'm going to build if Dallas gets out to a lead, because that would change the personnel that these two teams are using quite often in this game. So don't be afraid to go. I mean, this list of all 5% plus owned captains did not even include George Kittle or Zeke, who are both under that. But still, in the right game environment could be optimal as well. So plenty of different options to choose from with your captains. I think McCaffrey is by far the safest. So we'll plug him into kind of a sample lineup here and just see how it goes as we go through. We've got both quarterbacks projected for around 50% ownership. Pretty much the norm on Showdown slates. Usually you'll see them maybe a little bit above 50%, but it is somewhat tough of a salary cap on this slate. So what do we do with the quarterbacks? Do you play just one? Can you play neither? How do you handle those guys tonight?
I think you should play at least one. I think you should play Dak. You can obviously play Purdy if you wanted to. It's going to be tough to play both because there's so many skill players that can absolutely break the slate. So I personally don't really like playing both quarterbacks, but obviously you can. My preferred choice would be to play Dak. Would be my next spend in this lineup with McCaffrey as our captain. And then I really like your Pollard call. Like, I know you said you can put him in the captain, which you could, but I really like playing him in flex. He's like my favorite quarterback skill player to play in the flex would be Tony Pollard. I think he's starting to finally snap Zeke. Zeke, unfortunately, is still getting like the red zone touches, which really stinks, especially for Showdown. But I think Pollard is going to have a really, really strong game.
Yeah, one of these weeks, Zeke is not going to, pound in a 1-yard touchdown run. It's just, I know it happened. Let's see. Let's pull up his game log. It was a ridiculous, 8 games in a row or something like that towards the end of the regular season. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it was 8 games in a row. But I mean, you can see even last week in a game that they controlled, and the last game of the regular season, like the last 2 games, 21 total carries, 37 total yards. There's just no burst there anymore. Pollard's by far the explosive player. If Zeke falls into the end zone, it happens. But, I mean, he hasn't averaged more than 4 yards a carry in like 2 months. So Pollard is definitely the play, especially since I think Dallas would be behind. That gets him a little bit more work in the passing game as well and hurry up offense type of situations. I am fine playing.
Pollard's like a dual threat, right? Like he can get the rushes, he can get the check downs, like he can get all this usage, which is just gigantic in Showdown. So I think he is just like by far like my favorite flex play.
All right, with you on Pollard. So we right now in this lineup we've got McCaffrey and let's see. My screen is stuck here for a second. Bear with me. Well, I can't get back to my screen share for that. I might have to close out and reopen, but we'll see. Let's go ahead and move on to the pass catchers, and I'll attempt to get the screen share navigated there in a second. But your thoughts on how we want to handle the wideouts in this game?
Yeah, like Michael Gallup, I think would be my favorite wide receiver if you can't get up to CD, which is the current lineup that we're building right now. You just can't do it. So Gallup has retaken kind of like the number 2 role on this offense. So I think that he would be my next guy in. He's projected for 18% ownership in the flex, which really isn't that bad at all. And I think his role is going to be pretty big. And if you think that Dallas is going to be behind in this game, he would be like a plug and play for cash games and large field GPPs.
Yeah, I like Gallup as well. I think, Gallup and Lamb, again, if you want to focus on Dallas potentially playing from behind, both of those guys are going to get their share of targets tonight. Maybe you could even throw Noah Brown in as a cheap play. But what I'm going to do, next time I throw it back to you, I'm going to hop out of the room here quick and then hop back in because I'm stuck on this window of me looking at just Tim and I on the screen, and I cannot get back to my screen share. So somehow my browser window is frozen, but yet the program is not frozen. So I'm still streaming, but the screen share is going to be stuck in perpetuity on running backs unless I hop out. So I'll throw it back to you. Why don't you talk about how you're handling the San Francisco pass catchers a little bit, and I will hop out and hop back in here in a second.
Yeah. Like the one thing that I do want to talk about before we talk about San Francisco is Dalton Schultz. He's going to be around 30% owned, and this is just not as strong of a play as it was last week. And I think a lot of people are going to be chasing that game log of his explosion games that he's been having the last couple of weeks. And that's just not going to be the case every single week. And that's why I prefer going to Gallup. And I think that I'm going to fade Schultz. Obviously, Schultz could end up having a big game, but I don't think it's a very, very strong play. Moving to San Francisco, it's Deebo Samuel is obviously your top option, but he's expensive. So I think that you want to drop down to like Brandon Ayuk or George Kittle, something like that. There's not a lot of like strong value when it comes to San Francisco pass catching. That's why I'm not as crazy about rostering Purdy, because I don't really like his options to pair him with. So that's why I'm kind of sticking with McCaffrey as my captain and then getting some of these mid-range guys for Dallas.
Yeah, that build kind of works a little bit better. You can see I got my screen share back here. I think I had a curse of too many tabs open. Finally came back and got me here, but we finally got it pivoted over to wide receiver. And so, if you get a cheaper Dallas guy, some people might have stronger feelings about Schultz, or Schultz is 5,600 on DraftKings, Gallup is 5K. Whatever you want to throw in one of those cheap guys, or if you need a real punt, Noah Brown, if you think that or T.Y. Hilton, if you think they're going to be way behind. I do think that it's easier to fit those guys in, than some of the higher end options if you're using McCaffrey and Dak, because they take up a high portion of your salary. So
I would definitely play T.Y. Hilton in cash games today. Like, he's getting tons of work and he's only $2,800. Like, he is, and he's showing up in 20% of our optimals, and he's only going to be 20% owned. So he's not like negative leverage. Like, he's a good, solid play for tournaments and for cash games. Like, you're going to need the savings today, kind of whoever you play at captain. And I think he's the best play under 3K, and we don't really have like any of those, $200
Yeah, the
guys.
$200 guys
Right.
just don't exist
Like,
here.
right. Like we have Jake Ferguson who's showing up at like 4.7% optimal and 2.8% owned, which is okay. But he's like, I think he's $800. So he's not even the stone min. So T.Y. Hilton, I think, is by far the best like punt play.
Yeah, this would leave you with 6K for your last spot. Obviously, I probably rework this lineup a little bit. This has a little too much Dallas, but it's like you mentioned, it's hard to get all the San Francisco guys in there together. You can obviously get a kicker in there, and then I've got. If I put don't put the Dallas kicker in there, you can't make an extra point.
I was just going to ask you about him. Like, that was such a public game, and like everybody saw that, like him getting the absolute yips or the shanks or whatever you want to call it. Like, I wonder where his ownership's going to be. We only have him at 15%, and he's going to be in the optimal 22% of the time, which is like, that's huge.
He's not going to be in the optimal 22% of the time if he can't make a kick.
Right, I know, but I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, watch him go 5 for 5 today from 40 yards out. Like, I can't imagine that he would stay. Like, I can't imagine. I don't know. I just can't see him having such a bad game 2 games in a row, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean,
I think he's a really good tournament play today, to be honest with you.
If he shanks his first kick, it's a problem. If he nails the first one, it could be. I was looking, so he missed 4 extra points in a row in last week's game, and he also missed his final extra point in the regular season. So he missed 5 extra points in a row over a 2-week span. Justin Tucker has only missed 5 extra points in his career, which is pretty remarkable because he's been playing for about a decade now. But
Cowboys kicker Brett Maher has been shaky in pregame warmups.
Drive that ownership down a little bit more,
right?
Because there was a spot late last week where they just didn't go for the field goal because they didn't trust him at that point. And I think that's when they got the wide open touchdown to CeeDee Lamb. And then that was the extra point that he ended up making at the end of that. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, I saw like a promo on one of the sports betting sites. Like, you could bet they had it labeled like, oops, he did it again. Will Brett Maher miss a kick? And yes was like plus 250 or something. I can't remember now. But anyway, if you're looking to play it safe, Robbie Gould is probably the kicker you want. We've probably gone over the allotted quota for kicker conversation, but yeah, I bet Gould will be the higher owned kicker. We've got them both around the same ownership, but I think that ownership, obviously it's data driven, and there's a little bit of subjectivity involved in this because of what happened with the Dallas kicker last week. So I'll be really curious to see what that ownership ends up coming in at once the game starts. So, all right. Any interest? I mean, obviously San Francisco's defense has been one of the best in the league. Dallas going up against a rookie quarterback. Like, I think the defenses are certainly in play here for some big plays potentially.
They're in play. I'm always very, very bearish on defenses. I think that they need such kind of outlier plays to really become optimal in large field GPPs. So for me personally, I'm out on them. I'm more kind of struggling what to do with Eli Mitchell. I think like he's only 3K and he's showing up in the optimals like almost 18% of the time. But it's like, I feel like they're not going to utilize him unless they're up big. Like, I don't think he's going to keep kind of like sniping these touchdowns from McCaffrey. So I don't know. I keep being wrong about that. So, because if you don't think that, I think he's a really, really strong play as a pivot away from like a T.Y. Hilton right around that same price point. So I think he's just an interesting talking point because he might be a good play on teams that you don't use McCaffrey and the captain. Because if you use McCaffrey and the captain, you're going to want all the TDs and you're not going to want him to vulture any of them. So, but I think he might be worth a few shots, like in large field GPPs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a risk reward play, but those are the plays that in these showdown slates, I mean, they make the difference. And if he snipes a touchdown and you got some lineups where you don't have McCaffrey, it could certainly be a boost to your outlook at the end of the day. So, all right. So if you got questions, feel free to throw them in, fire them in the YouTube chat. We can grab them. I'll move the screen share. Hopefully, don't freeze again. We'll get this over to FanDuel here, and we can talk about that. So, all right. So if I look at MVP ownership on FanDuel, sort by that, you can see we don't have the disparity in ownership on FanDuel like we have on DraftKings, right? This whole first page of 9 players was all over 5% on DraftKings. We don't have that on FanDuel with the MVP because there is no salary multiplier. So the highest salary guys are going to make more sense on FanDuel. McCaffrey, the quarterbacks, especially since you only have half-point PPR, Debo and CeeDee Lamb get a little bit more love. And it's almost always the case where you just use your highest price guy. So, McCaffrey and Dak are taking up a much more significant share of the MVP ownership on FanDuel. I think a really interesting question that some people might ask is this a slate? Are these teams spread out enough to where I can use, say, a mid-to-priced player or a mid-to-high-priced player like a Pollard or a Lamb or a Kittle or somebody like that? Can I use that guy as my MVP on FanDuel, but yet still play like McCaffrey or Prescott as a flex play? It's counterintuitive, but is that doable on this slate?
I think you can with Pollard, but that would be as far as I would go. I wouldn't go anywhere below Pollard on FanDuel. Just because he has such dual threat capabilities. He's got big play capabilities. He's got a huge ceiling, a nice floor. But other than that, I wouldn't go below Pollard on FanDuel. That's where I would stop.
Yeah, so Pollard is the 5th highest price player at $12K there on FanDuel. So he is a little bit more expensive, comparatively speaking, on FanDuel. But you got McCaffrey, Dak. I mean, if you want to do the same type of build, so our previous build was McCaffrey, let's see, Dak, Pollard, and then you take a punt like a Hilton, and so you got 8,000 for your last player. So you can certainly make that work on FanDuel with a similar type of build. The salary cap isn't super restrictive. You can get McCaffrey and Dak in that same lineup. And if you're looking to, we haven't really done a different type of build, but let's say you wanted to do that San Francisco domination type build. So maybe you get Purdy in there, McCaffrey. It's just more difficult if you get Purdy, McCaffrey, and Kittle all in there. And if you try to get Debo in there, you've only got 6,500 for your one Dallas spot. So I guess then you're at somebody like Noah Brown. And you can build that San Francisco domination build. Maybe you want to get their defense in there. Touchscreen does not like me tonight. And then if you get their defense in there, you can take out Debo. You got 8,500, so you got a little bit more salary. So you can do that domination build. The Dallas domination build will be super contrarian. Is that something? Obviously, you have a little bit more interest in Dallas on the whole because of the way the salaries work. Like, would you consider making like a 4-1 Dallas build?
I think it's a great way to get contrarian. Like, you will be very much alone. That's the way that you can solo shift these showdown contests, which are even harder to do on FanDuel. So I really like it. I think it can be done. I really like the people that you compare Dak with. I think they're all in really good spots, and I think I'm just a little bit more bullish on Dallas as a whole in this game. I think this game is going to be within a possession for most of the game. I don't think it's it would be nice if you could do like a one-off Christian McCaffrey and the rest of your guys be from Dallas. I don't know if you can do that, but I'd be interested to see if that was something that would be possible to make a build like that. That way, maybe you can monopolize all the touchdowns for Christian McCaffrey and then run back with all your, these good Dallas skill players.
Yeah, I mean, this lineup that I just schlock together here basically has all the Dallas guys in it.
And then perfect.
With McCaffrey, well, it's 55. This is 5,500 over.
I was gonna say, wow, that's a good team.
Yeah, you could fit Kittle in this build. But if you wanted to do, McCaffrey, you'd have to drop down from at least one of the top end Dallas guys and get somebody a little bit cheaper. But
I'm sure you could get off Lamb, and then that could work.
Yeah, that would give you 7,500. So you're in the T.Y. Hilton, Noah Brown range. So.
I would love that type of team for like a contrarian type build for sure. Yep.
All right, we got a few questions. I think in the YouTube chat, got about 3 minutes to lock. Kevin says DK Cash 2v2, Purdy and Maher, it's either Purdy and one of Maher or Mitchell, or Schultz and Kittle.
I'd go Purdy Maher.
Tim is unconcerned about the struggles and warmups of Brett Maher. We'll see. Let's see. Producer Steve posted CeeDee Lamb first TD at plus 1,100. Pretty good odds on that. I think somebody somewhere, I know, super specific. Somebody somewhere won a bunch of money on a CeeDee Lamb first TD prop earlier in the year. It was. I remember seeing the headlines on that. I mean, it was a ridiculous amount to bet on a first TD prop. I can't find it now, but anyway, there it is. $97,309 on CeeDee Lamb to score the first touchdown at plus 800, and won $100,000. Ended up netting or paying out $100,000 gross on that first touchdown. Not something I would do. Probably not something that most people would do. A lot of people might not be able to get 97,000 down on a player prop on a sports book, but somebody did and won 100,000 on it. So kudos to whoever that was. Maybe it was Steve. Maybe he's gonna, he's gonna run it back again. There. Okay. So Steve's got a parlay on the screen. Let's see. Are these all anytime touchdown scorers? So these are Chase, Goddard, Kelsey, and Lamb. Are they all? Maybe those are all first touchdown scorers. Those must have to be first touchdown scores.
Yeah, I think I saw something about this. Like Kelsey got it, and then Goddard got it.
Yeah, and then Chase was the first touchdown scorer, and so that has to be first touchdown scorers. Given
what's the cash out on that? I wonder.
They don't. DraftKings won't let you cash those out. So that person is.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. FanDuel usually you can cash those out. DraftKings they won't let you cash out some of those types of parlays. So that person is pretty much stuck riding their $5 to win $65,000. And interesting. That's and you can't really hedge that, right? Because then the moment you hedge that, like Kyle Juszczyk is going to get the first touchdown or something, you try to put some on some other guys. But all right, looks like that's Kyle Miller. That's got that sweat tonight, so he's rooting for that CeeDee Lamb first touchdown. Boy, to turn $5 into 65 grand would be pretty nice payday, and probably pretty deflating when the first three hit and then the final one doesn't. But all right, well that's it. We're at lock, so hopefully y'all got your lineups finalized and submitted. And it should be an entertaining game of football. We'll see if Dallas can hang and their offense can click like it did last week. And then we'll be down to 4 teams heading into conference championship week next Sunday. So, Tim, anything else before we get out of here?
Nope. Taylor Montgomery is not going to win my outright ticket in the golf this week. So I'm tilted. I'm ready to watch football.
All right. Yeah, those are hard to hit, unless you're betting half the field or something. Obviously, if you're just betting 2 or 3 of them, man, it's tough to win a golf tournament, and you got to play real well for 4 days. And it looks like John Rahm and Davis Thompson coming down to the wire in the golf tournament this week. So with that, we'll go ahead and get out of here. Thanks to Tim for joining me. Thanks to Steve for producing behind the scenes for us as well. I am Justin. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, everybody, and we'll catch you back here tomorrow for our usual Monday night NBA lineup here on RotoGrinders. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.